the hormone ghrelin, which signals to your brain that you're hungry and that you want to eat. When you don't get enough sleep, that spikes. So you get higher levels of ghrelin. Leptin is the kind of the opposite, we'll call it, hormone. And that's what's going to trigger to your body that you're full. That plummets. So you don't get, the next day, you didn't get enough sleep. Your sleep cycle was disrupted. So the next day you wake up hungrier than you usually would. Plus you don't have the hormones so that when you do eat something, you're not getting the same response you normally would to tell you to stop eating. Welcome back to the Deep Life. Today, we're going to get deep on, nutrition. Kind of specifically, maybe, the idea that eating at night makes you fat.
Oh, yeah. Love this one. Love the memes that you see on social media with two pictures of the same person holding some sort of food, whether it either be an apple or a piece of cake.
Yeah, I feel like it's like always an apple, but yeah, the cake. Yeah, you just see a cake too. Those are two great examples. That's exactly what you see.
And it's, eating at 8 p.m. and eating at 8:01 p.m. Does it make you fat? No. Of course it doesn't. It's 1 minute. Yeah. So let's really dive deep into that concept, because I do think through social media and the influencers and people who put stuff out like this, their intentions is very well. Because of course eating at night doesn't make you fat. What makes you fat is processed foods, eating constantly, and not being in a caloric deficit.
Yeah. It's like lifestyle makes you fat. So one food is never going to do anything. Nothing makes you fat. Nothing makes you skinny. Nothing makes you jacked. Nothing makes you healthy or sick.
Right. And it doesn't matter if you're eating at 7:30 or 8:30 at night.
Right.
But.
But it does.
Yeah.
And I think the problem, just like you said, these people are making this post because they're very well intentioned. They don't want people to be, too dogmatic, too excited about one thing, too afraid, you're hungry at night, then eat something. I understand that. I understand the everything in moderation idea, but it ends up being I'm kind of missing the forest for the trees, where it's it's the exact same amount of calories if you eat, we'll just go with an apple. You eat an apple at 7:59 and you eat an apple at 8:01, the calories are the exact same.
Right.
But like we were saying before, the lifestyle habit of eating late at night does make you fat, or does contribute to being fat, being metabolically dysfunctional.
Yes.
Because you're throwing off, your natural rhythms, and you're doing things that are out of alignment with nature.
Right. Yeah. If you're constantly eating every night at, 8, 9 p.m., or you need that midnight snack, of course, that's going to disrupt your sleep, which is so imperative in your body's restoration of repairing the cells, especially from food, that it needs to rest and digest. And it needs what would you say, at least 4 hours before you go to sleep?
I think 4 is a good number to shoot for.
Yeah, where you shouldn't eat, for your body to fully digest and be able to assimilate those nutrients into your body.
Yeah.
To metabolize.
Right. And get that done so you can move on to other things like sleep.
Yes.
So I think, maybe let's pull back into kind of a bigger picture and look at kind of what we mean by lifestyle, and why we like fasting, and how everything is everything. Because when you get into these memes, and it's semantics, it's arguing over words, it's arguing over minute details, and trying to prove a point by saying this one thing is the exact same as this thing. A calorie is a calorie, is the saying. It's not. Every calorie is not the exact same. And I know we've brought this up a bunch of times, and I know we're going to keep bringing it up, because it's such an important point, because it's the exact same if you make this meme with an apple and say like at 7:59 this apple won't make you fat, at 8:01 it will make you fat, is the exact same as having like 100 calories of apple versus 100 calories of Snickers bar.
Right.
And saying that they're the same thing. They're not the same thing, but the calories are the same. But it's such common sense to know that if the only thing that you ate all day was Snickers, and you ate 2,000 calories worth of Snickers versus 2,000 calories worth of apples.
Right.
You're not, over the long period, you're not going to have the same body.
No.
You're not going to have the same health.
No.
You're not going to have the same sleep quality. Like all these things are going to be influenced by the quality of the food you're eating. Mm-hmm. So if you're able to wrap your head around that idea, that obviously a calorie is not a calorie, mm-hmm. if one is coming from an apple and one's coming from a Snickers bar, then it's the same to think like a calorie at night isn't going to be the same as a calorie during the daytime.
Right.
So the main reason, I think the biggest reason we like fasting, the biggest reason that we like to just have a break from food in general, whether it's at night or in the day, is autophagy.
Yes.
And kind of giving your body the chance to clear away toxins, clear away damaged cells mostly. So autophagy is the system and like the action that's taking place in your body mm-hmm. when your body eats up damaged cells. It happens every day. Cells are, for the most, like they're designed to die. Your cells have a significantly shorter lifespan than a body does.
Yeah, there's millions of them in your body. Some of them, mm-hmm. I mean, we're going through cells every second right now, constantly. Just sitting here.
Yeah. So it would be weird if there wasn't a mechanism in place to get rid of those. You'd be enormous, and you'd just be like this massive pile of dead and damaged cells that you'd just be dragging around. So in the same way that like a snake sheds its skin, a human, like we shed one cell at a time, I mean, more than one a day, like hundreds, thousands every day. And what your body does, you go through and you eat these cells up and you take the parts that are still good and basically recycle them and create new cells with them. One of the main things that stops that process is eating. Mm-hmm. Because you can't go through and basically digest your own broken down cells if your body needs to focus on digesting other foreign cells that you're bringing into your body.
Exactly.
So the biggest benefit of intermittent fasting is that you give yourself this opportunity to take a break from food mm-hmm. and let your body deal with other things.
Yes. Basically
maintenance of cells, of damaged cells, broken down cells, so that they don't build up, so they don't accumulate, so that you don't develop cancer and disease.
Right.
Your body can kind of cycle through, create new cells, stay healthy. Mm-hmm. Everything's changed, everything's cycling. But when you eat, so if you're doing that every night, if you have this long break where you're like between dinner and breakfast where you're not eating, that's the perfect opportunity for your body to go through, repair itself, maintain things, and then start over the next day. Mm-hmm. If you eat too close to bed, then you're not able to do that, or you're not able to do that as much.
Or as effectively.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yes. Is it making you fat? No, of course. You're not gaining 15 pounds in your sleep. Yeah. Of course not. But the food that you're eating at night is not going to be properly, like you said, properly or effectively digested to the best of its ability.
Exactly. So you can't digest that food as well. You can't go through the other processes of maintenance. That's going to throw off your hormones.
Yes.
So first off, let's just go through a list of things. Like when you eat too close to bed, you can't sleep as well because your body's busy digesting. So mm-hmm. you can't relax and fall asleep in the same way because your body's busy assimilating nutrients, doing all these things. Then that's going to throw off your hormones because you're not able to kind of reset your hormone levels and kind of start over with the new day.
Right.
because you're all thrown off. So that's like the hormone ghrelin, which signals to your brain that you're hungry and that you want to eat. When you don't get enough sleep, that spikes. So you get higher levels of ghrelin. Leptin is the kind of the opposite, we'll call it, hormone. And that's what's going to trigger to your body that you're full. That plummets. So you don't get, the next day, you didn't get enough sleep. Your sleep cycle was disrupted. So the next day you wake up hungrier than you usually would. Plus you don't have the hormones so that when you do eat something, you're not getting the same response you normally would to tell you to stop eating. So not only are you more hungry when you wake up, you're going to eat more than you usually would. Not sleeping enough also disrupts insulin sensitivity.
Yes.
So you're going to have more insulin in your blood than usual, which triggers to your body to store more fat. And then the other thing I didn't even mention is that when you do wake up and you're hungry and your ghrelin levels are high, you're more likely to make bad decisions.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. And you're going to eat immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
Usually right away. Like, oh, I'm starving. Where's my coffee and pancakes?
And that's exactly. You end up getting pancakes when maybe you normally wouldn't, or like a donut. But getting coffee in the morning, you're like, yeah, donut looks really good because I'm starving. So you're going to make decisions kind of based on the emotion of hunger more so than what you know you should be eating. So that night you didn't sleep well. You didn't have the proper autophagy. So you already have a buildup and accumulation of some damaged cells that weren't there. Then you're going to make worse decisions based on food because you're already really hungry. Then you're not going to be able to stop yourself from eating because the leptin levels are so low. The food that you eat is going to be more likely to be stored as body fat because you're more insulin resistant and you're not as sensitive to the insulin. So you have more insulin in your bloodstream. And then when that becomes a habit over and over every day, like for years, then you do get fat.
Yes.
Like that's what it's not necessarily that one apple you had at night had more calories than if you had eaten it at 7:59.
Exactly.
It's that the pattern that you developed was disrupting your sleep, disrupting your hormones, disrupting your circadian rhythm, disrupting when you should be eating, when you shouldn't be eating, and that you're all thrown off, and then that all builds on top of each other, on top of each other, on top of each other.
Yes, exactly. And that, exactly like you said, I was going to bring up
long-winded answer.
No, it's what we're here for. It's going deep into it. No, I was just going to say, it's that pattern, right? Every once in a while, you and I do this, especially after the holidays. Just now, we were definitely eating later than we normally do, 1-2 days a week. Which is okay because you can get back into the habit of eating earlier, that 3-4 hours ideally before you go to bed to assimilate your body back into its natural course and circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
However, like you said, if this is an every night occurrence, let's, for instance, now substitute the apple with a glass of wine or a beer. Alcohol is huge in this as well. So of course, people enjoy that relaxation after work and a hard day and the community that it brings with family and stuff. Of course, we're not telling people not to eat at night. And especially depending on your job, you may have to eat at 8 p.m. if you're working, 10 to 6, you have an hour commute home, then you have to cook dinner. Of course. You understand that? Again, we're not saying that's going to make you fat. The pattern of it continuously going over the rails and needing that midnight snack after you eat, that is going to contribute to probably faster weight gain than people would like if you're trying to lose weight or keep weight off. If you are in a position where you do have a really crazy work schedule and you have to eat at night, that's all right. Take into consideration what we're talking about with the intermittent fasting and allowing your body that time to rest and recover, get into that parasympathetic state right before bed. And if you can not stop yourself, but if you can take the time for that, 14 or 16 hour fast from your dinner time into sleep and then breakfast the next morning, that's going to be much, much, much more beneficial than, eating 20 minutes before bed,
right,
and then waking up immediately and having breakfast right away without allowing your body to get the autophagy and the rest and digestion that it needs.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, because like if you do have a weird work schedule, if you're working at night, it's hard. Like that's already really unhealthy. And like, I just want people to understand, like, if that is your life, I understand. Like if that's your job, that's when you have to be at work. I get it. But you are making that choice. Like you're doing that. So make the other choices around it to sort of optimize what you can optimize, and pay attention to when you're eating, because like if you get out of work at 2:30 in the morning, 3 in the morning, be careful. Like just pay attention to what you do eat. If you're starving after work, I understand. Like that's a weird thing, but like having a really, really light dinner before you go to bed, and then eating something, a bigger, more substantial meal like during midday before you go into work is going to be a much better way. Like just because it's the last thing you eat before bed doesn't mean it needs to be a big, huge meal. In the same way that just because the first thing in the morning doesn't have to be like eggs or whatever. It doesn't have to be breakfast food.
No, it could be a steak.
Yeah, you can do, literally. And you can get up and
or apples and bananas.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So you can get up and have, dinner foods first.
Breakfast for dinner.
Yeah, and have like some eggs before you go to bed. Like,
yes. And
it's all fine. Yeah.
And I do want to say, because when we began this practice of eating earlier, we've kind of over the past, 5 to 8 years, eaten earlier and earlier every year.
Yeah.
Because we have found how beneficial it is for our bodies and how much better we feel going to bed in a digestive stomach state. And we obviously have our lifestyle set up in the way to do that.
Right.
So again, we understand. But it did take time, and really took a long time for me to adjust to this, because I had kind of almost like hunger cravings. We had always kind of had dinner and then was open to the idea of snacking after, and just having that as an option if I needed it in my back pocket. Like, okay, I'll just grab some crackers or, like I said, even an apple or orange or anything. And knowing that that was in my back pocket made me feel better. It was just the mentality.
Yeah.
I don't even think I was hungry. And a lot of the times I want to differentiate that too, because I don't think a lot of people are hungry, especially eating after dinner. They're kind of on autopilot, or they're in front of the TV and they're maybe bored with the show that they're watching, and they're like, oh, I could have some, popcorn, or let me just finish that ice cream just to kind of give myself an additional happiness, serotonin kick while I'm watching this show. But really taking a dive deeper into almost just get yourself in the present moment and ask, really, am I really hungry right now? Or do I just know that food's readily available and in my refrigerator or cupboard, and I'm going to grab it because I can be used to it?
Yeah.
That's a habit that we talk about often, like breaking those bad habits, because that will contribute to better sleep if you're just not having that, half a pint of ice cream if you don't really need it.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that what we have found with ourselves, as well as the clients that we work with, and even people that we talk to at night, especially, think about the 24-hour period in a day. At nighttime, you're at your 18th hour of the day. You've gone through the day, your body's exhausted, you're eating certain things, you're drinking certain things. However, at night, you're probably really thirsty. And thirst can be a hidden kind of signal, like I'm hungry, but you're not really hungry, you're thirsty, you're most likely dehydrated.
Yeah.
If you don't have that adequate hydration, especially if you're not putting that tiny bit of, pink salt or sea salt in your water, the water is just going through you. Yeah. So at night I found that just again, dealing with clients, people are really dehydrated and they're masking that, thinking that it's hunger pains when your body's craving water.
Yeah.
Just water. So think about that. Go back and when you're kind of like, okay, yeah, I want that popcorn, or I want those cookies or the crackers that are in the cupboard, the ice cream, just take 1 minute. Take 1 minute to pause. Or what I've suggested to clients is just drink 8 ounces of water, wait 10 minutes, and then see if you still have those pains for, oh my gosh, I have to have that, quote unquote midnight snack, even if it's not at midnight.
Yeah, I think I love that advice. I think like either water, or another one's like herbal tea, like having
definitely
because like drinking something warm
that doesn't have caffeine in it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to have caffeine. That's the last thing you want. But
yes,
just either one of those, or like squeezing a little lemon into your water, something that's going to be hydrating and substantiating, because you do get hydration from food, and like you said, like your body's going to be craving something because like fat is hydrating. And you're going to want, but also like so is water if you drink good quality water, or and I think if you are able to, I guess, hydrate yourself when in that moment, and also like you just want something, and having something. So that's why I say like the tea, because maybe it is like a little bit something. Drinking something warm is going to slow it down. You're not just going to pound it, and you can kind of like satiate that need by drinking something.
Right, which is a great way to again build up that. I don't want to say tolerance for not eating, but I guess it's really the mentality. It's the mindfulness. And that's what I wanted to say with especially me. It took me a really long time to do that. But exactly like you were saying, I started to have like tea and almost more liquids. Yeah. Because they're much easily digested and they're less harsher on your stomach.
Yeah. So it's sort of differentiating between cravings and hunger.
Yes.
Is a big thing where I think like the tolerance is a good way to put it, because it was hard. Like when we first started fasting, and this was like 7 years ago. The first way we did it was to fast all day, to have a light breakfast and then a really light dinner, and would have days that were like, I think I did like 800 calories a day and you did 600, and it was like a 300 calorie breakfast and a 300 calorie dinner with a 12-hour break in between.
It was difficult,
which I do think is by far the hardest way, and like probably the worst way to like practice. But it was good mentally to understand, like just almost like practice being hungry more so than anything. But,
and what you mean by that, let's just dive a little bit deep. Practice being hungry. That's kind of an interesting sentence. Practice being hungry. But really think about that for a second, because it helped us determine so much what those hunger, I do want to say pains, feel like. It's a hunger pain. It's your body craving and needing the nutrients from food that it requires, as opposed to being on autopilot and bored, where food is so readily available that you're eating it because you're bored and have nothing else to do. Like I was saying with the example of being in front of the TV, which is exactly it. Like, you can be stimulated by whatever show or movie you're watching, but if it's not giving you the attention that you need, you're like, what else could I be doing right now? Okay, I'll just have a couple spoonfuls of ice cream. So that hunger it's to experience it is, I would say, very beneficial to determining whether or not you're hungry, bored, or thirsty.
And along those same lines too, like when you're sitting in front of the TV, when you, even if you are like stimulated by the show, in that sense, you're not paying attention to what you're eating.
Yes.
So those few spoonfuls of ice cream really quickly turn into the whole carton, or you eat a bag of chips. Like everybody's had that experience where they're like, you don't even think about what you're eating, and all of a sudden you realize the bag of chips is empty because you were paying attention to the show. So mindful eating is kind of definitely another topic to come back to, because I think that's really important. But like
you were talking about the hunger pains, but practicing being hungry.
There is it's okay to be hungry sometimes.
It is, You're not going to die.
You don't have to eat every time you're hungry immediately. It's okay to be like, all right, it's going to be like an hour before dinner. I'm hungry. I'll wait, rather than having a snack and then having dinner an hour later. Like, you don't need that. So I was saying before, the first time that we experimented with intermittent fasting, it was, get up in the morning, have a meal like first thing when we got up, and it was 300 or 400 calories respectively, and then a 12-hour break, and then another 300 or 400 calories. And we were doing this like...
We did it in San Francisco.
Yeah, but I think it was like 2 or 3 days a week that we did that for like a couple months.
I think I did it for only 2 because it was really hard for me, and I'm gonna sympathize with people if they've done this or want to do it, or it's definitely hard to do it at a corporate job. You really have to be, because there are so many. I mean, in my corporate job, there was a cafeteria, but also people just bring in food and snacks, and there were snacks in my desk. So having it readily available, you definitely, when you begin. This is, again, another topic for a different podcast episode, which we'll dive deep into with fasting. But you really have to be in the correct mindset to begin fasting and intermittent fasting. But okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I should say, like, so for me, eating 800 calories a day is not sustainable for forever.
No.
But it's also like fine for a day. Like I know that that's enough food. I could do that for a week and like be okay. Of course, like that's plenty of food. But it's difficult. So like I'm used to eating significantly bigger meals than that, and especially then I was eating a lot of food. So to only eat a little bit and then to wait 12 hours before you eat again, like you experience like hunger, because it's almost like having an appetizer and then not having your meal.
Yes, it's a great way. That's a great analogy.
Yeah, so like it really like, but I'll say it again, like it was the worst way to intermittent fast, and we can give better tips for that after, but. In that moment, like I knew that I wasn't going to die. I knew that like, okay, I had 400 calories this morning. I'm going to eat again in 12 hours or, we'll say midday. So I got 6 more hours till dinner. I'm really hungry. But also like I said, I'm not going to die. It's okay to be hungry. And then you can get comfortable with that, just knowing that like there's going to be a meal coming. Everything's going to be all right. And then it's like a good skill to have, because then down the road, like there's days where you're hungry, and when you're hungry, like there's not always a really good option of something to eat. So if you're like, okay, it's 3 hours till dinner, and I'm really hungry, and all I can do is stop at In-N-Out and get a burger, that's not your best option. So it's good to have the skill set to be like, all right, like been hungry before. It's going to be fine. Yes. I can wait until dinner.
Yes.
And I think that's like, there's a lot of benefit to that. And now, especially like now that we do the fasting on like a few days a week, where it's 24-hour fast, and much easier to just get up and not have breakfast and wait all the way and just go from dinner one night till dinner the next night with nothing to eat. And it's significantly easier to do now than it used to be, and that came with practice.
Practice. Everything is practice. Nothing happens overnight. Like when I tell you, again, we've been doing this for 7 years.
Yeah.
So don't beat yourself up about it. But exactly what you were saying, when we were splitting it up with the smaller portioned calories, 12 hours in between, that last quote unquote meal, that last 400 calories that we had was always 16 hours before the breakfast. So which we want to kind of circle back into the concept of eating at night. I think I even brought my dinner to work some of those nights. I made like hard-boiled eggs or chicken, or I had brought like something with me because I knew that I needed to stick within that time frame. And then again, that worked for me. I was very dedicated at that time to it. But again, just want to circle back to the eating at night, because we're getting into to fasting, but eating at night really.
Yeah. So a lot of things, like when you eat that close to bed, you're just kind of opening yourself up for all these things to go wrong, because you're eating, you're going to metabolize that food at a slower rate anyway, because your body's asleep. Like most of your body like isn't being used. A lot of the functions aren't being used. So it's not like calories not always a calorie. Like let's just be really, really clear on that.
As we're recapping, yes, calorie isn't a calorie.
And the calories that you eat right before you go to sleep, you're not going to burn at the same rate that you would burn them if you ate them in the middle of the day or in the morning. And then you're also setting yourself up for like if you have any sort of like acid reflux or digestive issues to begin with, which most people do, so many people do, unfortunately, that's going to be worse if you're like lying down immediately. So if you eat something and then lie down, you're kind of just opening yourself up for that to be worse. So there's all these things that can go wrong that are going to disrupt your sleep schedule. And another, like a huge one is like I said, you're going to make worse decisions. So you make worse decisions a lot of the time when you're hungry.
Yes.
When you're eating something like a midnight snack, if you're eating something late at night, you're doing so because you're hungry or because you're craving food. And you have this craving. There's something drawing you to get up off the couch, go to the kitchen and find something, or like order something from Uber Eats or whatever. Usually, I would assume, and everybody's different, but I would think if like you had dinner and then it's like an hour later and you're hungry, most people are like craving something sweet.
Yes, always, yes.
Which I feel like everybody, that's the main complaint I think I get from like
from our clients,
that we get from clients is like, okay, but like I had a dinner, I had a really good healthy dinner, and then I was craving something sweet. And that's the difference between hunger and cravings, because when you're in the habit of having dessert after dinner, and like this starts like when we're kids, like you can go your whole life where it's like some people have dessert after every meal, or if you just do it all the time, when you eat that, then you sit down, then you're going to start thinking about dessert. So that's a craving. That's not hunger. That's not the pain in your stomach, the need to eat something that we were talking about before. This is just a habit, and it's just as hard to break, I think. Like it's a challenge to break that, but I think just understanding that all this is a sort of a conditioned response to like Pavlov's dog kind of thing, where once you've had dinner, once you sit on the couch, like your body's like, all right, it's ice cream time. Yeah. Like, what's up?
Exactly.
What do we have in the freezer?
Yep. And our bodies love comfort and repetition and getting into those cycles.
Yeah. So I think like when you get to that point that like every night you like need something, you're going to tend to make bad decisions. So you, rather than have like an apple, you have some ice cream. And then when you burn off the calories from that ice cream, it's going to be at a slower rate because it's like you're not using this energy to go work out or run a marathon or carry something or do something or be active or even think and write and work. Your body's asleep.
Right.
So your whole like metabolism is going to slow down. You're not going to handle these things in the same way. And then like I said before, this is going to disrupt your sleep. It's going to throw off your circadian rhythm. It's going to throw off your hormones, specifically like the hormones that are used in like your metabolism. It's going to just really disrupt things like the acid reflux and all that, like that. Like any issues that you can get from food are going to be exacerbated when you eat them late at night. And then you start getting into that cycle of perpetually doing this because you wake up and you're hungry and then you're all thrown off, and then you start making poor decisions again because you have the like insulin and the leptin and the ghrelin. All these things compound on each other over and over. But even if we take like weight loss and weight gain out of it, so like the meme that we started talking about was like, this is going to make you fat, but it's also going to make you unhealthy. So I was saying like the late night food is going to do all those things, like I said, acid reflux, the hormones, all these things. It's also robbing you of your ability to repair and heal yourself.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's the most important thing. Like we still, like, crazy as it is, like scientists still don't fully comprehend sleep and really understand like why it is that we have to do it. But
it's necessary.
It's so really necessary. Important. Yeah, like if you lived out in the wild, it's the most dangerous thing you could possibly do is to like go to sleep, to like literally just be like comatose for 8 hours. It's so like if there's predators out there that are gonna eat you, you're just serving yourself up on a plate. So for something to be so important that we would evolutionarily work in like a period of time where we're not awake and responsive, it's got to be so important.
It does.
And one of the biggest things is it clears out your brain. So this is kind of like a separate thing from autophagy, but it kind of plays into it. It's the same kind of process. But the only time that can take place in your brain is when you're asleep. So your body, like, autophagy can take place during the day. Like, there's other things like different stressors that can set it off. Working out does it, like things like that. Going in a sauna, going in an ice bath. Like, you can get these processes through lifestyle in a lot of ways. You can't through your brain. You can't in your brain. But when you're asleep, your brain condenses, and the cells in your brain tighten up and shrink. And what that does is it opens up space in between the brain cells. It opens up pathways, and that's like room for the dump truck to come through. So like so fluid is able to pass through your brain when you're asleep that isn't able to pass through your brain when you're not asleep. And that's what helps protect you from like Alzheimer's and dementia and like brain diseases and the buildup of like amyloid plaques that would like eventually down the road cause cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. So literally the only way to take care of your brain properly is to get really, really good, high quality, deep sleep. And you can't do that if you're having food or alcohol right before bed, because your body has to focus instead on metabolizing that food and alcohol and breaking it down. So it's like a biohack. It's like, I hate to use that term, but it's like if you want to take
it's a natural biohack.
Yeah, it's not even a hack. It's like just like this is just being a human and doing human things, like getting good quality sleep.
But it's
a
important.
Human thing, but it's so important.
Yeah, and it's not talked about, especially like, again, we're circling back to that meme. There's so much more context, which is what we wanted to dive deep into, because it's just not as simple as, eating at 8 o'clock and 8:01. And I think it's really beneficial that we put this information out to people, because I don't want, especially like we talk about this all the time, like who we needed ourselves to be, 10 years ago. If I read that meme, like I would have had a field day, like, okay, like I can eat at 8 p.m. Perfect. And it's like, of course, we're not trying to make people feel bad in any means. Like if you have to eat at 8 o'clock, like I said, because of your job, because of an extenuating circumstance, of course. But you're going to be so much healthier. Your body is going to be so much happier, be able to do what it needs to do properly if you are eating slightly earlier, that 4 hours before you actually go to bed at night.
Yeah, so I think you give that 4 hour window, and I think really like I think that's such a good goal. Like if you can take anything from this conversation
and start slowly, right? Like we were saying, build that momentum up. If you're used to having, a snack or whatever, or food, an hour before bed, do it in increments. So then the next night, try, an hour and a half, then 2 hours, then 2.5 hours. Before you know it, within a week, you can change that window of hours before you go to sleep and have that, quote unquote snack or meal or whatever, pretty quickly. Yeah.
And a good way to do that is by just like having a bigger dinner. You can just have dinner earlier, but all the things that we are saying that tie into, if you can eat like a bunch of like good quality fat and protein.
Yes, I was going to say definitely fat and protein.
That's going to help you stay satiated so that you don't go to bed hungry because you feel really good. But also we mentioned before that like eating fat helps hydrate your body as well. And I think an interesting way to think about that, like if you have dry skin and you put water on your skin, that's going to dry it out even more because of osmosis. But if you put like coconut oil or something on your skin, it's going to hydrate. Same thing is happening in your body. Like if you put fat into your body, it's going to slowly hydrate your body as that's broken down. So just like trying that makes sense. Because I think the idea of like, fat hydrates you might sound crazy, but people naturally like put coconut oil on their skin and put different oils on their skin to smooth out their skin. It's the same thing on the inside. So eating that and eating like a good big meal 4 hours before you go to bed, you're going to be less likely to reach for and crave something later on because you're not hungry. I think a lot of times where people go wrong is trying to eat a smaller dinner, like especially if you're trying to lose weight. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to have this like light little dinner and be healthy. But you don't eat enough so that an hour later you're hungry again. So then it gets worse because then you end up eating the same amount of food, but you're eating it closer to bed and you're disrupting your sleep cycle. Where if you can just have the bigger, more nutrient dense dinner, then it's going to be easier to stay satiated and to go to bed later on without an additional snack.
No, I think that's,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's, you're out making fabulous points.
There's another point I want to think that was going to be helpful there. Just the staying hydrated, the drinking water, like you said earlier, is another great tip. And then also, like trying to sleep as close to the cycle of the sun as possible. And that's another thing. It's like really, really hard for people who have a crazy work schedule. But if you just kind of think back more ancestrally, people weren't going to be hunting or looking for food and eating and doing stuff too late at night. But if you rise with the sun, it's just going to be it's going to feel a little bit more natural. And that way we're kind of syncing up the processes like the autophagy and the resetting of your hormones, a little bit more natural to the way of the earth and the cycles of the sun and the moon. And I think that helps, is as crazy as it might sound. Because I think we've gotten so removed from that. I think it's really, really helpful to kind of remember who we are and to be as natural as possible
Absolutely.
in that process.
Absolutely. I think that was a lot of information for our nutrition topic of, does eating at night make you fat?
Yeah.
It's not as simple as yes and no.
Yeah.
Calories aren't all created equal. And hopefully we gave some helpful tips of really trying to be present in the moment, think about those, cravings versus hunger pains. If you may be really dehydrated at the end of the day and need to, have 2 glasses of water with a little bit of sea salt, or like you said, some herbal tea that's nice and relaxing to get you into that parasympathetic state right before you go to bed, so we can allow our bodies to do the magical healing that they're meant to do.